through our website, www.wadr.org.
Monday to Sunday.
It's hard to explain, okay? But
all day, all year round.
it's so mysterious.
This is who we are.
This is who we are. WADR.
West Africa Democracy Radio. We are the station.
We are the station.
Other radio stations listen to 94.9 FM. Your dial for top news, informative programs, music, and lots more.
We are West Africa Democracy Radio.
Attention, ladies and gentlemen.
It's time to embrace a youthful mindset and envision your future. Take the lead is in your world.
Take the lead is in your world.
This platform serves as a space for engagement designed to equip young people to become effective leaders. They are actively contributing, creatively engaged, and determined in various fields. And now, this is Take the Lead.
What a pleasant way to say hello to you out there and welcome you to this extraordinary edition of Take the Lead, your youth exchange program right here on West Africa Democracy Radio in Dakar, Senegal. My name is Augustine Cully, and today we will focus our discussion on World Press Freedom Day and also examine the challenges that young media professionals face in the discharge of their services to society. Please follow us right now on 94.9 FM. We are also streaming live on YouTube at WADR News and on Facebook, WADR English Service. You can also get us worldwide at wadr.org and listen to us live and direct from our main studios at anywhere, anytime. As a reminder, we will be reading your comments on the live broadcast feed. So please send in your reactions, send in your opinions, send in your thoughts so that we can also share this platform together. World Press Freedom Day has its origins in the Windhoek Declaration of 1991, a statement of press freedom principles crafted by African journalists in Windhoek, Namibia. In December 1993, the UN General Assembly proclaimed May 3 as World Press Freedom Day following a recommendation from UNESCO's General Conference. So May 3 serves as a reminder to governments about the need to uphold their commitments to press freedom. It is also a day for media professionals to reflect on issues related to press freedom and the professional ethics of their job. Importantly, World Press Freedom Day supports media outlets that face restrictions or media censorship. And it's also a day to remember journalists who have lost their lives while pursuing stories. This year's global theme for World Press Freedom Day is Reporting in the Brave New World, the impact of artificial intelligence on press freedom and the media. And this theme reflects the unprecedented use and development of artificial intelligence, or also known as AI systems, which are now playing a transformative role in journalism, media, and human rights, often with unforeseen circumstances. So today we will delve into the challenges that the media is facing and also discuss measures to address these difficulties.
Take the Lead is back in 2025 with a brand new format. Yes, Your youth exchange space will now be broadcast live every Friday at 4:05 p.m. Universal Time. And that's not all. Dear internet users and WADR subscribers, you have the opportunity to experience the show live and direct on our online platforms on Facebook at WADR English Service and on YouTube at WADR. Take the lead every Friday from 4:05 p.m. Universal Time and rebroadcast same day at 1 a.m. Universal Time. Also on every Tuesday, your youth program will be rebroadcast at 7:15 a.m. and 4:05 p.m. GMT. Take the lead and champion the discourse for the betterment of young people.
And indeed, if you do that, you will be the champions. And joining us for today's discussion are dynamic young journalists, all ready to explore their thoughts with us. They are Khadija Mendy. She is a reporter and a TV host at the Senegalese news agency. It's a pleasure to have you in our studios today, Khadija. How are you doing? And welcome.
I'm good. Thank you very much, Augustine, for having us on this program.
Okay. Is it your first time in our studio today?
No, I came...
Please get used to the microphone.
I came here in 2023 with... it was with your colleague, Dembama.
Okay, yes, that's wonderful. So it's good to have you back in our studios.
Thank you.
All right, and we also have Rank Tenwong. Tenwong is a journalist working with KT 103.9 FM, and he's also a media expert. He's all the way there in Nigeria's Plateau State. And it's a pleasure to have you joining us, Tawong. How are you doing, and welcome to the program? Good afternoon, Tawong.
Sorry, I'm having network issues. I'm trying to fix.
Okay. So we was
all right. I am here.
Okay. So welcome.
Can you hear me?
Yes, you are live and clear. So please, tell us how are you doing today?
I'm fine. And how are you? How is Dakar?
Well, Dakar is okay. It's a pleasure to have you on this platform today as I'm seeing you through the screen. So tell us, how do you feel being on this YouFood platform today as we are about to discuss World Press Freedom Day and highlighting your job as a journalist?
Well, it's an opportunity for me to tell the world how it has been here over in Nigeria and how the issues that journalists face over here in Nigeria is an opportunity to tell the world, and I feel it's an honor for me to be on this platform today.
Great. There are more to talk about from Nigeria. And we also have Aissatou Keita from the Gambia. She's a Gambian journalist and the media specialist at Freedom House in the Gambia. However, Aissatou is the president of the Gambia's Press Union. It's a pleasure. Women in Leadership. Welcome to the platform, Aissatou. How are you doing today?
Thank you so much, Augustine. I'm doing fine, and it's a pleasure to be part of this particular program, especially when we will be talking about some of the challenges that us as young people face in the media landscape. It will be a great opportunity for me to actually highlight and talk about most of these things. As we may know, the Gambia might not be different from most of these other countries within West Africa.
Mm-hmm. That's great. So let's just get the ball rolling with you, Aissatou. Tell us how is the condition of journalists like, and what do you make of press freedom? What comes to your mind when it is Press Freedom Day or people talk about freedom of the press? Aissatou, are you...
Sorry, you may want to go back to the mic. Yes.
Yes, I'm asking as to what your understanding is about press freedom.
Thank you very much for that particular question in particular. But at first, I would like to also greet my colleagues, the journalists there at Senegalese News Agency, and also that individual from Nigeria. When we my perspective, especially when we talk about press freedom, given the current day and age as we move on in terms of journalism and understanding the work that journalists do on a daily basis, we talk about having the leverage and opportunity to be able to report issues as state or even the institutions that we actually face with. So when we talk about press freedom in most aspect, we might not just talk about press freedom in the aspect that journalists might be restricted from doing their work as per it relates to the state, because most of the times when we talk about press freedom, the only aspect that we look at is being able to being given the conducive environment by the state to be able to access information and work independently, and also hold public officials to account. But again, we look at some of the conditions that also stifle press freedom, that is the working conditions that actually journalists face in terms of certain resources that are available, in terms of the pay, in also terms of how much we are able to report on most issues that affect the public on a daily basis. So when we talk of press freedom, for me, my perspective does not just stop at the issue of being able to having government to giving us the landscape or the conducive environment to report, but also the conditions in which we work. How free are we for us to be able to do work as expected?
Great, Asatu. What a nice opening statement. And to you, Khadija, here in Senegal, you are a journalist. Tell us, how is the working condition of a journalist when it comes to having the freedom to carry out their work void of intimidation? How is it like?
I cannot say that there is no freedom in this country, especially when it involves journalists and the way they do perfectly their jobs. But there are certain restrictions. We have seen it in a period of our history, especially with the former regimes, all this intimidation attempts to stop journalists from effectively doing their job. So regarding this, we can say that there have been restrictions, but overall journalists here are very independent. They do their job perfectly, and they follow the law of this country, and especially the press code that organize the work of journalists here in this country.
How do you think it is important for the press to be free, for it to be protected, for it to be secure in carrying out its work?
Many of my colleagues wouldn't agree with what I'm going to say. But actually the fact that we have a press code, which was voted in July 13, 2017, to organize the media, the functioning of media organs, this is the best protection the authorities have granted to the people in the media industry. If you comply with it, you will work in total security. That's the best the authorities of this country could do. The next thing now is up to journalists themselves. They have to work. Yes, we can talk about independence, but this independence goes with responsibility. You need to be very responsible. Respect the rules of journalism, have some ethics, and respect the deontology over how you should do this job.
Okay, thank you, Khadija. Tewong, how is it like in Nigeria, considering your role as a journalist? What can you say so much about press freedom in Nigeria?
Well, this is a moment for me to reflect on my job as a journalist and the challenges that we face as journalists. One, yes, it's a time for us to look at how we relate to the society. We look at also how we relate with government agencies when it comes to regulation of the press. Talking about how it has been here in Nigeria, it has been a challenging landscape in view of the fact that, yes, we talk about issues of freedom, we talk about laws guiding journalists, but when it comes to issues of implementation, it's a different ballgame together here in Nigeria. Aside just regulatory bodies, We have issues of government interference in the operations of journalists here in Nigeria, where you tend to see government coming out with laws most times to see how they silence the media that they perceive as being quote unquote opposing policies of government. Then you come to the journalists also facing issues with ownership, talking about owners of media organizations and how they also want to control the way the journalists also relate. Coming to government media organizations, it's not different. Coming to also private-owned media organizations, the situation is not different because the government wants to control the media to its favor. Most private individuals that go into the business of the media here in Nigeria, you see them have one affiliation or the other with a certain political interest. So some of them, or most of them, come into the media business for them to protect their political interests. So politics, yes, interferes mostly with the issue of press freedom here in Nigeria.
Okay, great. I will get back to you regarding some security issues with regards to journalist safety during these ongoing crises across Nigeria. But let me go back to Asatu. In terms of the necessity of ensuring press freedom, how does ensuring press freedom impact society? Like maybe the Gambian society, the citizenry, including authorities?
Thank you very much. I think that's a very crucial question when you talk of the impact of ensuring a free press and all that. You should understand the fact that the job that journalists do on a daily basis is quite daunting, but it's something that is duty bound. Imagine a society wherein we live with information on a daily basis, and then having a society that is able to have access to information and have the leverage to report on issues without intimidation, without fear, becomes something that ensures takes part or contributes in democracy and good governance in the society. That this has so much impact on the overall well-being of not only journalists themselves, but even with the state, because it will be able to hold the state itself to account when it comes to some of the things that they do. But also looking at it at a narrow perspective and the landscape that we have as a society. We have a Gambia, for instance, like I'm saying, we have a very young population of journalists, and most of the issues of lack of free press has actually result to most people live in the media landscape looking for greener pastures in other areas, which is actually affecting a great deal in which the journalism profession actually thrives in the Gambia. So the impact is such that people will be able to report on issues effectively as possible, but also there is no aspect of wherein a platform will be created for people for journalists most to say, to lead to self-censorship on the work that they do on a daily basis. And this has actually been one thing that has affected the way in which journalists actually work in the Gambia.
Okay, great. Khadija, you were speaking about responsibility or responsible press, and I'm concerned about reasons why the media faces challenges of maybe media censorship or crackdown or attacks on free speech. What do you think are the factors that make these media to be looked down upon and also be attacked by other forces?
I will come back to two things I wanted to talk about. You know, when you look at the media landscape, there are two issues that prevails. The first one is the precariousness of work conditions. I don't know whether I pronounce it well.
Okay.
It's the precariousness, because you take the example of certain media organs. There are no regular remuneration for journalists. There is no mean of transportation for journalists to do their regular activities. There is also no pocket money for even to buy meal. So all this make the journalists very reliant, or they depend too much on the people who invite them, on the reimbursement of transportation they give them. And journalists cannot be independent while living in those conditions. And if you say that, you ask me about the reasons many journalists are looked down upon, it's just for that. Because if they are dependent on people, on authorities at first, on private people in the private sectors, people who can provide something for them in exchange for a good writing, So this dependence, I think it creates a certain bias in the way they process the information, and they are ready to do any sort of thing just to please the person that is their provider, and this, of course, the society will notice it and they will not appreciate.
Okay.
The second thing also is the lack of training. Many journalists are in the industry without having the most appropriate training. They don't have any degree. That's why most of them cannot apply to have the press card, because they are not complying with the dispositions of the press code.
Great. With regards to that, I would like to ask you, Tenwan, what do you make of this statement by Khadija with regards to having media owners not living up to their responsibility by providing safe working environments for their employees, by providing the requisite training, the working condition, the equipment, better salary, so that these reporters, those news editors, would not rely on the press releases that are sent to them, would not rely on the press conferences that they are invited to compromise the profession? Tell one.
Now, I want to align with what she has said. Is also seen here in Nigeria. Mostly, generally, I think journalists are poorly paid here in Nigeria. And you have issues of insurance, which the journalist doesn't have any form of insurance here in Nigeria. So, God forbid anything happens, you're just on your own. No one takes care of anything, and your family is left to mourn, and the organization moves on, be it government, be it private. It's here in Nigeria, as she has said, talking about issues of transportations. Now, let me even talk about the remunerations. Like she said, in Nigeria, most privately owned organizations pay less than $50 to journalists, particularly with this economic situation that we're having in Nigeria, where the cost of food, transportation, and even education is on the high side at the moment here in Nigeria. But you hardly get journalists who are paid even up to $100 a month. I'm talking about a month. Now, you calculate what you spend on transportation and other things. You're left with no choice than to depend on what people who call you for work provide onto you, and it makes you compromise your standard instead of just presenting your work, moving your way, and going shoulders high that, yes, I've presented this. But you see journalists moving around anytime an event is over, trying to see if they can get one thing or the other. And unlike what she said, here in Nigeria, yes, most journalists, it's through self-sponsorship. They train themselves in school. You come to even issues of updating their knowledge. Instead of organizations to take responsibility, you see a journalist in trying to keep up with the trend. Is either he is training himself privately, or organizations, partner organizations that are with journalists, the body of journalists here in Nigeria, they provide training to see that they keep up to date. But most organizations don't pay their own money to see that they retrain their staff.
Okay.
Despite the qualification, which is the minimum of becoming a journalist, a member of the body of journalists here in Nigeria is a degree certificate. Despite having this degree certificate, there's need for training and retraining. but we don't often get such kind of opportunities.
Okay. One important aspect of the significance of Press Freedom Day is to remind government to be upholding press freedom by ensuring an independent press, creating the avenue for the press to operate freely, and also provide support. Policies should be crafted, achievable ones, that will help the press to operate freely. Answer to, in the Gambia, how would you consider the government's commitment to upholding press freedom, providing the avenue, and also enacting necessary policies that will provide protection for the journalists to operate professionally? Answer to, are you getting us?
All right, thank you very Yes, I'm getting you.
Okay.
Thank you very much for that question. There has been government commitment at the time, especially if you could recall where we came from as a country, the 22 years of dictatorship where there was no access that journalists actually had at the time to thrive, given the aspect of so many arrests and detention of journalists and so many other things that journalists have actually faced in the country. There has been so much effort that government has actually done since the dawn of the new dispensation, especially in the aspect when we were able to have the ATI Commission, which is now actually up and running. And that's some sort of a headway that we have in order for journalists to be able to have access to information and making it much more easier for them to thrive, especially in the area of investigative journalism. But in as much as there is so much work or progress that has been made, we are still faced with issues of having existing draconian media laws that actually exist in the Constitution still, which has actually and still continue to stifle the free engagement of journalists. Like we had a case in point that many people will actually know where we had most of our at least one of our journalists from one of the newspapers here that was actually taken to court for the aspect of forced publication, because that is still enshrined in the Constitution. We still also have the aspect of sedition, still also in the Constitution. We still stifle what the work of journalists, because at this point it is government that tends to decide what constitutes false publication, which is still so much problematic for us in the Gambia. That actually has affected the way in which journalists do their work on a daily basis. Although what we are still able to do is to be able to push on with our advocacy efforts to ensure that we continue our engagement with government still, so as to ensure that this part of the Constitution, that is the aspect of false publications, false news as well, and also the aspect of sedition, to be removed in the Constitution, because these are still problematic issues, and it's government that still tends to decide or define what constitute these things, which is actually a problem, because we've actually had a recent case of these things. And we think this is one way in which government is also trying, in as much as it's making effort, but it's one way that it's also trying to see how best it can also control the media and so on. But there has been progress, and we are also foreseeing some aspects of commitment, especially given our relations and engagement with the Minister of Information, Media and Broadcasting Services. So with this, I still think that we have still some work to do, and that government also still have a whole lot of work to do to ensure that we have actually the environment that we envision and that we want to thrive as journalists.
Great. Well, so far we have listened to interesting interactions with our guests on this 18th edition of Take the Lead in the year 2025. Let's now listen to this special report by WADR's Monrovia correspondent Ibrahim Parker, in which he highlights the voices of young journalists in Liberia who are not only shaping public discourse but also facing a mirage of challenges in the pursuit of truth and accountability.
On this occasion, we delve into the insights shared by two passionate young journalists, along with a dialogue with the president of the Press Union of Liberia, who provided a broader perspective on the issues at hand. In an interview, Harris Bedi, a passionate young Liberian talk show host, discussed the inspiration behind his career choice, stating he believes journalism is a powerful tool for change. Amid the passion, they as a young journalist and all others experience challenges in capacity building and a less attention to their welfare.
The institution, in terms of salary, in terms of benefits, in terms of protection, in terms of, materials, all of these things still remain a challenge for, if not all of the media institutions in Liberia. So because of that young journalist wakes up and all what he or she thinks of is to just get out there, make some good friends, use the media, seek opportunities, venture in different professions. And so you find about 50-60% of we the young people that actively in the media in Liberia, we have different careers we're pursuing. We still believe that the media can contribute significantly to the building of Liberia. I think the issue about welfare, the issue about institutions as well, living up to their commitment, is like we live into our side of the agreement, because in the midst of salary constraints, in the midst of the limited resources, you find we are out there covering, reporting, digging out, investigating on the news. The institutions, their side of it has become a challenge.
Naomi Conan, another young female journalist, highlighted the challenges they face from limited resources to societal pressures.
First of all, I have the passion to be a journalist because I love working with people and then making people to know what is going on in the country. And then I love working with females, especially because in Liberia we have a society where females are not given the opportunity to showcase their talent. So I believe that my profession can help me to promote other women in the society. Well, it has been challenging because first of all, most stations in Liberia don't really prioritize the welfare of journalists. That's because most of the CEOs don't have the resources, but they just want to give the platform to people so they can showcase their talent.
The conversation took a turn when the president of the Press Union of Liberia, Julius Kanoba, shared insights on the union's initiatives aimed at supporting young journalists.
One of the core responsibilities of the Press Union of Liberia is to protect, defend, promote, and strengthen freedom of speech, freedom of expression, and media rights within our country. And this is a core responsibility that we take as very fundamental.
He also elaborated on the key issues confronting journalists in Liberia, emphasizing the need for improved welfare and working conditions.
One of the crucial responsibilities is the issue of journalists' welfare. Our leadership has decided to initiate or embark on the process of launching what we call the Journalists' Welfare Survey to know the current or status of journalists in the country, or employment history, the salary that journalists do take, some of the working conditions that they are confronted with, and then how the PUL, that's the Press Union of Liberia, can be able to design strategies to intervene regarding the welfare of journalists.
As World Press Freedom Day serves as a reminder of the vital role journalists play in society, the stories of these young Liberian journalists, both the challenges they face and their unwavering commitment to their craft. With the support of the Press Union and a commitment to ethical journalism, there is hope for a brighter future for press freedom in Liberia.
Many thanks to WADR's Monrovia correspondent Abraham Parker for that report.
Hey people, my name is Mello, Afrobeat singer from Guinea and Conakry. I love listening to the program Take the Lead on West Africa Democracy Radio.
Hello, my name is Fatou Bintou Rassoukane. I'm the CEO of African Start Shop and I love listening to your program Take the Lead on West Africa Democracy Radio.
Yeah. Welcome back to Take the Lead, your premier youth platform that sets the agenda for topical discussions all about young people within West Africa and across the sub-region. We are streaming live on YouTube at WADR News, on Facebook, WADR English Service, worldwide at WADR.org. Let's now recognize our partner stations across the sub-region that rebroadcast this program, beginning with Nigeria, where we have Darling FM in Owerri and Nenzit FM in Kaduna State. In Liberia, we have Alternative Youth Radio in Lofa, DCN Radio in Rivers County, Kwatika Radio in Bone County, and Radio Bombing in Bombing County. To Sierra Leone, we have African Young Voices there in Freetown. Radio Baf, Mile 91. We have the Hands of Hope in Freetown. We have Eastern Radio all the way there in Kolno District. Crossing over to Ghana, we have Radio Path in the Savannah region. We say hats up to Royals FM all the way there in Wenchi. And crossing over to the Gambia, we have Numin FM in the North Bank region, as well as Radio Veritas there in Banjul. We thank you all for rebroadcasting this program. Now, before we ask for your maybe concluding statements or charging governments or institutions responsible to ensure the safety of journalists, let me ask you, Khadija. The president of the Coordination of Press Association in Senegal made a statement. He said the Senegalese press is like George Floyd, suffocated by the institution that's supposed to protect it. As a journalist here in Senegal, tell us, is it the reality? Was it right? Is it something that journalists are experiencing here?
I think everybody here in the country has a way to interpret it. Maybe the president of the coordination of, what is it called again?
The Press Association.
The Press Association. Maybe he has a specific way to interpret it following the condition in which he is now. But let me read you here just some figures about media who apply to be recognized by the state. I think this is not unknown to you. There are overall 639 media, and those who have been approved are 258, and those who were not approved were amount 381, so nearly 400. And these are the media that comply with the press code, and I think they will soon face shutdown according to the minister. And when he compared the situation of the media to the situation of George Floyd, I think it's a bit of exaggeration, because I don't think that, the media industry exists in the country like other sectors. The government, I'm not here to defend the government, but journalists sometimes they want to present themselves as victims when they are not all the time. In a recent interview with our colleagues of the agency, the director of communication revealed that 45% of the aid granted by the state to the press were not injected into the functioning of the press organs. Instead, the owner of the organ would use it for himself. And this, you can realize it when you visit certain media organizations. You will see that the media owner or the editor-in-chief, they live in a very good conditions, while the other reporters, they have no salary, as I stated earlier. They are not in very favorable conditions. So it's good to talk about the press aid. You know why the government grant this aid to the press? It's for them to preserve the ethics and the deontology of their work. It's for them to work independently. It's to contribute to their independence, in fact. Because an independent press will guarantee the right of information to every citizen here in the country, while respecting the legislation that frame their work. But there's media owners that are always claiming more, that are always denouncing and keep denouncing. Sometimes they do it for themselves. If it was, once they get what they want, if this would reflect on the situation of the reporters, of their collaborators, that would be fair.
Okay.
Yes.
So in a sense that most of them are doing this for personal interest or gains.
Most of them. Those you see the president receive all the time and telling them there is exoneration, it wasn't really the case.
Okay.
But they have to pay their taxes because they are normal citizens. I work in a public service media, and we also pay our taxes. There is no exoneration, just as is the case for for banks and for other companies in the country.
Great. There is this saying in the media that as a journalist or a reporter, you have to live to tell the story. And I'm saying this in relation to the level of work you do there in Nigeria's Plateau State, Tenwang. Please tell us, or the region, how do you go about carrying out your work in reporting attacks in communities so that the attackers do not feel that you are reporting against them, or as well as the government do not feel that you are amplifying the situation and making the public to feel or believe that the government is not doing well to protecting the citizens in those George Plateau States communities that are often attacked by maybe jihadis or other terrorist groups?
Well, it has been a very big challenge. I think I once shared my experience on this platform where I talked about surviving the issues of attacks, like on three different occasions. It has been a situation where communities sometimes feel you don't want to report their issues exactly the way they want them. And you go to government, they feel, okay, there's no need to amplify the issues that are on ground. And you go to even, because sometimes you relate with people who can volunteer information about even people who carry out these attacks. Now, someone can tell you, okay, I'll lead you to the person who can volunteer information to tell you, okay, actually, if we are responsible for this. But for us to balance this situation, most times you need to carry the interest of government, you need to carry also the issues or the plight of the victims of these attacks. And you also need to look at what are really the issues that these people melting out these attacks, what is really the statement that they want to make. Though not justifying what they're doing, but sometimes you need, for you to bring out the real situation for government to handle, you need to engage them, let them have some confidence in what you're doing, and project what really they are demanding from government. So you need to build trust with the people carrying out these attacks. You need to build trust with communities. You need to also build trust with government for them to understand that, look, all what you're trying to do is you're trying to get a solution to the issue at hand and not to put them at the disadvantaged side.
Okay, great. Now, as we wrap up, let's hear from you, Asatu. I remember there were times the press and President Barrow were at lockerhead. An editor was jailed or imprisoned. Tell us, as we celebrate 2025 International Press Freedom Day, how would you want to see the press going further? How would you want the governments, how would you want the various media owners to ensure that press freedom is indeed experienced, it is felt, so that it is not just a matter of discussing it, but it should be seen, it should be felt by journalists themselves, including the citizenry?
All right, thank you very much. So as we commemorate, so for me, most like I tell some of my colleagues, in as much as we look at this day to commemorate or to celebrate, but it's also more of a reflection of the work that we do, but also the conditions that we also live in. For us, in more of the aspect of the government is for the government to be able to repeal the existing draconian media laws that are enshrined in the Constitution, so that the journalists will be able to freely do their work without fear or whatever it is, and then with also avoiding some aspect of self-censorship because of the existing media laws that still affect the work that we do, but also looking at it in the terms of media owners or editors as well, to be able to give journalists the leverage to be able to do their work. Like my Nigerian colleague has actually mentioned, those problems in Nigeria are not unique to Nigeria alone, but those are similar conditions that we actually face, and that of the colleague that mentioned the situation in Liberia. poor working conditions still exist, and the aspect of low remuneration from media houses that journalists actually work in long working hours without not much focus on some of the things that they do. Even some cases that journalists work without even having any employment contract or even job security, which actually continues to affect the journalists in terms of the work that they do. Too much workload to an extent that it actually forces and kind of curtail the creativity of the journalists, and at some point will get them to actually move on to other job, or when they see things that are much more lucrative than the journalism industry.
Okay.
And even there is also not much editorial support to when you look at it in most of these media houses, because sometimes you see journalists will want to report on stories beyond workshop events, but they don't have that much support and guidance that they require to do from their editors and their media owners. So they actually look at things that are much more impactful or much more focused of the media institution, that some of the stories or issues that they will want to report on, which is of public interest. So there should be much more creative freedom for the journalists to be able to work independently on the stories that they choose to work, although given the aspect of ethics which they should still actually focus on, and the aspect of training also. Media houses still, especially editors, should also be able to do, even if not to send their journalists on training, but at least do some aspect of in-house training. That also could help the journalists to be able to work and then build their capacities, because most of the times, like what we have in the Gambia, most of the journalists come straight from the classroom and then to the newsroom. There is not much capacity for them to be able to thrive and do the work as expected and all that. All of these are actually compounding issues that we continue to face. And I think in as much as we talk about press freedom and freedom of the press, we can look at the aspect of this of the state, but then we can also draw it closer to home. The media houses that we work in, how free are journalists able to do their work they are supposed to do, not only allowing them to get information or report on issues that they want to report on, but also their remuneration, their pay, their social security fees, and all of those things are things that should be put into consideration as well. And because most of the salaries that they receive at the end of the month are quite very, very low.
Thank you, Asatu. It was a pleasure having you with us today on the platform. We hope to have you another time.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure being here as well.
Okay, Tenwong, thank you so much. As we take leave of you, what would you like to say quickly?
All right, just like my colleague has said from the Gambia, I want to say that this is a period for us to reflect on making our society better through our reportage. But by and large, I talked about government policies that government make on paper but hardly to implement. Citing an example of the press freedom, the Freedom of Information Act we have in Nigeria, that at the end of the day, if you come to implementation, it's very difficult. So I want to call on my colleagues, the journalists, to see the passion first. Yes, there are greener pastures in other professions, but when we are passionate about seeing our society as better and going with our shoulders high, I think we'll choose this profession that we have seen it as a calling to impact on the community.
Thank you, my dear brother. We hope to have you another time, Tenwon.
Same here, thank you.
Okay, and to you, finally, thank you for coming today.
Thank you too, Augustine, for having us. To wrap up, I'm just going to reiterate two aspects that I stated earlier, which are independence and responsibility. Independence in the sense that the government shouldn't get involved too much in what we are doing, and responsibility in the way that we should know what we are doing and how to do it and the impact it's going to have. There is freedom of expression in this country. It was granted to us by our constitution in its Article 10, and we can show it through speaking, writing, or demonstrating. But one more time, liberty is not libertinage.
All right. Indeed, it was a pleasure to have you on this show today. Well, listeners and viewers, this is where we conclude the 18th edition of Take the Lead here on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Remember to take the lead in shaping the discourse for the betterment of young people in Africa. My name is Augustine Cully, wishing you happy World Press Freedom Day.
We thank you for listening to this program in Nigeria on Darling FM 107.3 Owerri, Southeast. We thank our listeners.